Psycho Betty's crazy has reached a new high. Let's talk about it. Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to KRS TV. This is your boy Kenny, and this is If Loving You Was Wrong, Season 5, Episode 3, and the name of this episode is Randal's Rage. Yo, Psycho Betty was doing some off-the-wall crazy shit this episode to the point like, yo, they either need to put this motherfucker in a straitjacket or they need to kill him, but Randal gotta go. Like, he is doing entirely too much. Well, the episode picked up where it left off. We see that damn Eddie has now gotten into a bar fight with some guy that Esperanza was talking to in the bar, and pretty much, you know, she even jumps on the dude, you know, because, you know, him and his boys was getting Eddie pretty good, and the cops and everything got in, they broke it up, and Esperanza's man like, you are such an asshole. You're an asshole. And he was like, don't you go home. She's like, fuck you. And she ends up leaving, and then that damn Eddie is just lit, and he's like, that's what I'm talking about. Shots on me. Shots around the place. So Eddie getting his life after he done did some bullshit. But then afterwards we see this damn motherfucker Randal, aka Psycho Betty. Psycho Betty is still doing surveillance on Tanya. He's seeing Tanya with all of these different medications at the at her kitchen counter or whatever, and he's like literally focusing in on everything, and he's starting to see that her OCD is really bad. Then the next thing you know, he says, okay, you looking out the window? I'll give you something to see. This fool strips down butt ass naked and literally is standing in front of the window, and he can tell that she's looking up at the window. He's like, oh yeah, you like what you see? I know you like that. I'm like, oh, this fool is sick as hell. And it just goes to show this is how he got Alex. He saw her insecurities and he jumped on it, and he's about to make Tanya his next victim. So then we see Esperanza gets a ride home because her ass been drinking, and Stevens is outside of her door. And right across the street, Eddie's goons are sitting there waiting for Stevens to come out because they've been given orders that once Steven comes out to jump his ass. So then pretty much Esperanza and Stevens go back and forth. I'm not going to go through all of that because it was just too damn much. It's the same shit. It's like Stevens is not here for Esperanza and her bullshit. And she talks about how Eddie started a fight at the bar, and he was like, wow, you know how to pick him, huh? She's like, I picked you. And she's like, well, technically, I chose to come here. I didn't have to come here. So what you trying to say? But then he was like, so what is it? It's like, you know, you just been dealing with so many bad strays in your life, you don't know a good one when you see one. So they kind of had this little banter back and forth or whatever. Esperanza's daughter's at her grandmother's, and I'm like, good, because it really would look bad on you. You had that girl up in that house all night by herself while you going around tramping for some man at a damn bar. And then all of a sudden he was like, well, the thing is, I just wanted to make sure you was okay so I can go home. And she's like, where are you going? What is up? And I'm like, bitch, you just need to stop playing and admit that you like him. And he was like, look, what are we doing here? You know, like, what is going on? I'm like, you're confusing this shit, Esperanza. Like, make up your fucking mind. What do you want? You know? And he says that, well, and he said, I want you to come in, you know, I do like you, but I just, you know, I've been dealing with so many bad dudes that I just don't want to have another situation like that. And he was like, and he just was like being real with her. He's like, look, what page are we on? What's going on with this? You know, but then he says that, what, if I do come in, these are the conditions. I leave when I'm ready. and I want to take control. I want to be on top this time. And we see that she finally does let him in, because it was just like this back and forth, you know, cat and mouse thing. And eventually Esperanza relented, because Boo Boo, you did not get in that damn red dress to not get that man up in your bed, because that was the whole reason why your slutty ass went down there in the first place. But then as soon as he went in, the guys in the van called Eddie and let him know that he's in. And then all of a sudden Eddie's calling Esperanza a slut. And I'm like, really? You know, and well, ain't that the damn pot calling the kettle black? Because Eddie's the biggest hoe on the show. Even more than Alex has. And then they said, like, yeah, and once he comes out, we're going to cave his face in and all this shit. And then we see that back in the bedroom, Esperanza and Steven get in bed and they start rolling around. So we already knew that's what she was there for, because she jumped out of that dress. You know, it probably took her, some time to get dressed, but it took her about less than a minute to get up out of that. So we already knew she had them freakum dress on and she was ready for Stevens to smoke her boots, which he did. So then we see that Randal and his butt naked ass calls Alex. He's still in the window naked talking to her, and you know, he's talking about, you know, Brad and Marcy, and she's saying that, look, I just want this situation to stop, Randal. And it even got to a point where she saw him and then she was just like, I can't do this with you. You know, because she see that he's butt naked and he's just doing the most. And he's like, well, I'm divorced. Well, I'm divorced now. And she was like, yeah, and I'm probably heading down that road too. And he's like, you miss me? You know, because I definitely miss you. And then, like, she's just kind of pleading with him that, you know, can I come see my son? She's like, no, because he's asleep and you need to come in the morning in the daytime. You know, I'm not doing this with you. And he's like, you know, and she's like, I just want this whole thing to end. And he was like, well, right now I'm sexually frustrated. Maybe that's the reason why I'm acting crazy. Maybe you need to help me with that. And she's like, you know what? I'm not doing this with you. You just need to leave this alone and everything. And I'll see you tomorrow. So she hangs up the phone. So then he calls Larry, and again it's like, I'm going to hunt your ass down. You hear me? I'm going to get that ass. So then he gets up, still butt ass naked, goes to the window, and he's like, yeah, I see you looking. You like what you see. I'm going to see you soon, baby. I'm like, oh, this motherfucker has completely lost his mind. But it just goes to show how much of a sinister individual he is. So we see that Marcy finally meets up with Ian at the new house. She gives him his keys. Of course, there's like some chemistry there, so they kind of flirt back and forth with each other. And he's saying that, you know, I don't even have any furniture because the last place I stayed was furnished. And she was like, well, I know about some good furniture stores. She's like, okay, that's great. We should do, you know, you should help me. And she's like, well, I actually know somebody who does interior design and I can get them to help you. He's like, but I want you to help me. I'm like, see, Ian, I really don't give a fuck about Ian at this point, because until Ian makes things right with Kelly, Ian is on my shit list. And he starts asking her, is that, you know, son of a bitch still bothering you that lives across the street? And she says, like, just let me know. I can pull out the hammer. And she's like, what do you mean by that? She says that, look, I can get him to leave you alone. You know. And she's saying that, well, what I have to do for that? Well, he says that we can discuss, you know, we can discuss payment. And she was like, oh, let me see. My husband cheated on my best friend who was my next door neighbor when I was faithful. And then I had an affair with her husband, and he, at the end of the day, still loves her too. So I think I have paid enough as far as what I'm concerned. She's like, what you trying to say? You want me to have sex or nothing? Like, you want me to have sex with you or something? He's like, well, it's not like that. But he's like, but you're a beautiful woman. I mean, I'll be a fool not to try. And, you know, they kind of, you know, exchange, you know, they pretty much go back and forth, and eventually Marcy leaves. But for her to be as drunk and fucked up as she was done. And she kind of just told him that, look, I'm not looking for nothing right now. And I'm like, good, Marcy, because you don't really need to be with Ian, because Ian ain't shit. Until Ian stands up and be a man and actually make this right, he don't deserve nobody. He don't deserve no Marcy. He don't deserve shit. So then, pretty much across the street, up in Natalie and Lucian's house, they're talking about Kelly, and she's saying that, oh, it's selfish and unfair. And I'm like, yeah, Natalie, because you're not going through it. You're not understanding this, that she is literally been stalked by this man for years, and he literally put her in a corner where she literally lashed out because Travis was not going to stop coming for her. And it's like, both of them, her and Esperanza, are being somewhat judgmental to Kelly, but y'all not understanding the situation that Kelly's in, and that she really had no options. And now she's being railroaded by the system that's supposed to protect her. She lost it, and she wanted to end her life because she thought, I would rather die than to be without my son and to not have access to him. And then she's like, I will never let a man get the best of me and all that. You know, I can't be that vulnerable. But then, you know, she starts talking to Lucian like, you know, I got Joey in jail, and then I got these kids. But he's like, yeah, and I've been by your side the whole time. And she's like, yes, and I thank you for that. You know, you've helped me to become vulnerable, but it's hard for me to be vulnerable, you know, throughout this whole situation. And then all of a sudden, they kind of hear some noise outside. And, you know, and she first was like, you know, I want to go see her. And he was like, you can't, because she's in the infirmary. I had to sneak in to see her. But let's just say this episode she gets another visitor, and I'm going to get to that. So, he hears some noise, and it's Ian moving his shit in. So, he finally clocks Ian. He calls Ian. He goes outside, calls Ian. Ian looks at his phone and immediately hangs up on it. So he already sees that Ian is avoiding him. And Lucian is not going to let this go. And I was waiting for this moment, because Lucian is already getting to the point where he realized that Ian's on some bullshit. He can't put his finger on it, but something ain't right. And he literally saw him hang up on him. So he's like, yeah, I saw you moving in late. And he was like, you know, so why are you ignoring me? He's like, I've been calling you all day, and you've been ignoring all my calls. He's like, well, you know, I was in court, and plus I had to move and everything. And he was, and like, eventually they start talking about Kelly or whatever. And he's like, look, I've been trying to get you to help me with Kelly, and it's like, you can't do nothing for me. When I've done a lot for you, and you owe me favors, and the one favor I asked you to do for me, you can't represent her. Like, what the hell's going on? He's like, look, I just can't represent her, okay? I just can't. And then he lets him know, do you know she almost committed suicide? You know, and I had to cut her down. And he was like, oh my God, I don't think she would be the type of woman to do that. I'm like, no shit, Sherlock. You know why someone would do something like that once everything's been taken away from them and they see no way out. And he was like, oh, the type of woman, let me think, someone who's been humiliated, who's lost their money and embarrassed, and she snapped and she killed his ass. And here it is. I thought I was getting her a good lawyer that owes me a favor, and what you do in return, you send a kid that's my son's age, talking about Joey, to represent. He's like, well, that kid's like, no, the kid was terrified and he was awful. You know, because he literally told Kelly, you just need to accept a plea deal with the DA, because that's the only option you have. But Kelly's innocent. She acted out of protection for her son, because he had gotten to what's his name? Dang, what's her son's name? It was just on the top of my head. Well, it'll come back to me. Well, and that he was, Justice. And there we go. So the fact that Travis started messing with Justice, that's what made her snap. You mess with any woman's kid, that's your ass. So she proved right then and there that she's about her child and she ain't about nobody playing with her kids. And she said that he forced me into a corner and I couldn't take it no more. But yeah, I'm gonna get to that in a minute. But and then he's like, look, I can't. I just can't. And Lucian was like, oh yeah, I see. Yeah, that's what makes you a good lawyer. Because you don't care. You don't care about nobody, or you don't care about nothing or no one. And he just like, you know, that's not fair and all of this shit. And then he was like, you know what? Enjoy your night. And then he was like, oh, how is she? And he's like, oh, now you want to give a damn all of a sudden. You know what? He's like, you know what? I'm cool, man. Welcome to the neighborhood. And you don't have to sneak at night to move in. You know, I won't bother you because I already know where you stand. And I'm like, see, Lucian is going to get to the bottom of this shit. And once he finds out that Ian knew this whole time and you were allowing Kelly to rot in jail for something that she didn't do and you have the evidence to prove that she's innocent, oh, Lucian gonna fuck you up. Lucian is going to take you down. And we literally see that, you know, Ian feels guilt because you know what you're doing is not right. And now that he found out that Kelly, you know, nearly committed suicide, it did something to him, as it should, because you're one of the reasons why she's in there. But you're not alone, though. There's a few other people who has a hand in this, too. So, therefore, Lucian and Natalie have a conversation, and he's talking about, I want to get Kelly a good lawyer. And she says, I just talked to that son of a bitch. He don't even care. You know, and she was saying that, well, are you going to use some of your money to help her? And she's saying that, look, I'm not trying to tell you what to do with your money, but, you know, if you're going to use money to help her, I would at least like you to let me know about it, because we do have this house and we do have these kids, and we got to make sure that it ain't coming out of them. She's like, oh, I'm always thinking about my kids, so you ain't got nothing to worry about with that. You know, and she says that I got this under control. Let me handle this. So then we get a scene with Marcy and Brad. They're in bed together. And he tells Marcy that you've been amazing to me. And he apologizes about her having a miscarriage. And she's saying, and he tells her that it will happen. And she was like, well, it hasn't happened. I haven't been able to carry a child at all. Like, no matter what I've tried to do, nothing's worked. And she says that maybe, you know, it's not meant to be with him. But that doesn't mean you're not meant to be a mother. I mean, he got a point, because Randal was bringing so much negativity in your life, and he was just making you so miserable through the pregnancy. And I think that was kind of that situation beforehand, dealing with Randal and all his bullshit. But then he tells her that he's divorcing Alice, and then he's gonna he's gonna get her to sign the papers and all that shit. And he was saying, like, do you think she's going to let you just go that easily? And he's like, she don't really have a choice. And he says, well, how's Alice going to support herself? Because, you know, Alice doesn't work. He was like, oh, I'll still support her. If she signs the divorce papers, I'll make sure that her and the kids are well cared for. But if she wants to give me some rebuttal, I will get a lawyer involved. And she was like, well, yeah, you know, I might hire a lawyer. She says that, yeah, you might want to talk to Larry. Larry's such a good lawyer. But boo-boo, you don't know that Larry is behind Kelly being in jail, and that he's trying to railroad her because he's representing Travis' family. Wait till you find out that shit. Yeah, that's the motherfucker who got you off on your divorce, but he didn't do it for you. He did it for his own selfish reasons, because Larry operates off of what Larry wants. Him and Eddie are hand in hand. And then he's like, yeah. And then, like, Brad is like, yeah, I might give him a call. Or I might call your boyfriend, talking about Ian and shit. I'm like, Brad is funny, because Brad feel kind of jealous or whatever. And she's like, and she's like, he's not my boyfriend. He's like, yeah, but he wants you. And she says, they all do. You know. But then he says that once my divorce and everything goes through, we should start dating each other. But then he was like, but then Kelly, but then Marcy was like, well, we need to kind of take it slow, you know, because we done been through a lot, and we definitely don't need to bring all of this baggage to what we have. And then he says, and you know Randall and Alice ain't gonna like that. And he's like, I don't give a shit. And then all of a sudden he gets a call, and it's Alex. Alex has called his ass 10 times, and he finally decides to answer the phone. So he is really not thinking about Alice right now. But Alice calls and lets him know that their son Peter has a fever, and she's gonna keep him home from school. And she's like, I'm sorry. When are you coming home? And he was like, tell the kids I will pick them up at school, and I'll drop them off afterwards. And she's like, you're not gonna come inside and help them with their homework? He was like, Alice, don't do that shit. You're trying to use the kids to get to me, and you're probably trying to use that same reverse psychology that you learned from Randall. Like, he was going in on Alex, and I was so here for this. And then like, and then she's saying that, look, and she's like, what are you saying? She's like, well, look, you need to handle this, all right, and stop with the bullshit, and stop trying to play these little games to get me back, because I'm done. And he was like, and she was like, have you been drinking? And he was like, you make me drink. And then he tells her that she's a lonesome bitch, and you need to go some fucking where. And she was like, you have no right to talk to me like that. He's like, I got every right to talk to you like that, you know. And I'm like, you know, when I come by tomorrow, I'm bringing some divorce papers, and you better have a damn pen. I was like, oh shit, Brad is up to here with Alice and her shit. But then all of a sudden, after he got off the phone, Marcy was like, yeah, we need to take it slow, because it seems to me that you're just as mad as I am. Yeah, and y'all both need to be talking to some professionals, because y'all both been through some shit, especially when it comes down to that whole Alex and Randall situation. So then we see that this crazy asshole, Psycho Betty, aka Randall, decides to march his proud, simple ass over across the street to knock on Tanya's door. He knocks on her door, and he was like, oh, I'm sorry, you must have seen me. I was just getting out the shower. I'm so used to somebody not being there that you probably saw me. And she was like, I didn't, but she did. And he was like, oh, so is your husband home? And he's like, no, he's at work, you know. And she's like, are you feeling better? And he was like, oh yeah, what about you? And she's like, well, what do you mean? She's like, well, I saw you go into the mailbox over and over again. And she was like, well, I was looking for a package. Well, he lets her know that, well, the mail stops coming after 6 p.m. And then she was saying that, oh yeah, and you should paint this wall over here, you should paint it red. And she was like, no. He's like, you don't like red? So he's like playing the whole color thing, like he is really psychoanalyzing the fuck out of her. And she's keeping up a good front that she's not letting it get to him, but obviously it is. And she was saying, well, what's your favorite color? And she was like, blue. She was like, well, my bedroom is a shade of blue, you know. And she was like, so what do you do? She's like, well, I'm a stay-at-home wife and a mom to be, so she's pregnant. And I'm like, see, it's like this motherfucker done found him a new Alex. This evil bastard. And he tells her that, you know, I'm a doctor, I'm a psychologist, you know. And pretty much, and he was saying that, you know, he was definitely trying to get her drinking, and he was saying that, well, I can drink, but I don't think you can. And she was like, well, how would you know that? And he was saying, well, one, I got 20/20 vision, and I saw that you got some medication over here on the counter that you was dealing with. And she was trying to say, oh, that's a medication for my dog or whatever. And he's not buying it because he know damn well she ain't got no damn dog. But then he's like, you know, I got wine at the house. And, you know, trying to lure her over there. And she's like, no, I'm good. You know, my husband will be home soon and all of that. and and then, like, you know, and then she says, oh yeah, and I've seen you with your husband. I see you got your husband on lockdown, you know, and I understand it because you got a lot of whores in this neighborhood. He says that, you know, the girl across the street, she's a big ass whore, talking about Alex. Then he points to Kelly's house and says that, oh yeah, she done killed some damn body. And that house right there were 2 dead bodies that ended up in that place. So then he pulled a line from damn Antoine Dawson. It was like, so hide your kids, hide your wife, and hide your husbands. I'm like, no the fuck you not, you crazy bastard. Oh my god, I couldn't with his ass. And then he was like, oh yeah, and yeah, you know, the way things are going, you might need to get you a penis lock. And she was like, okay, you need to go, you know, you can come over when my husband's home. And he's like, you know, welcome to the neighborhood. And she tries, and after he shuts the door, she tries to call her husband, but then she breaks down, and I'm like, he done got to her ass. So she's about to be one of Randall's next victims. But little do you know, Alex is about to become one of Bennett's victims. So we're going to have to see how this going to play out. But this is going to be some crazy shit. Just some more shit has hit the neighborhood. So then we see Rick towards the end of the episode or whatever. He decides to go, he decides to go see Kelly. And she's still in the infirmary. The nurse, whose name is Pat, he's pretty much flirting with her, and she was like, you look so good, I might need to do you. And he was like, do me, baby. And she's like, you so corny. He's like, look, I need to be let in to see her. And she can tell his ass been drinking. She's like, I want $100 and 2 Powerball tickets, and you need to get yourself some coffee and get me a cup too while you at it. So he goes in there to see Kelly, and he apologized. I'm sorry. And she's like, it's a little late for that, don't you think? He's like, and she's like, I'm on this, you know, I knew Travis had a plan to destroy you, and she said that, look, he's dead, and it happened one night. But then her wheels start turning like, what the hell you know about this? So there's another person who knows the truth and are afraid to move because they know of Travis's family and also the connections with the law and all that shit. So Rick is another one who knows what's going on. And she says that, look, it happened one night. And she says, I wish I could take that night back. I wish I never would have killed him, but I didn't see no way out. And he lets her know he wasn't going to stop coming for you. And she was like, well, how do you know this? You know, and then she says that, here I am being convicted for killing Ramsey and Travis. I didn't kill Ramsey. And after Travis started coming after my son, I couldn't allow that to happen. You know, I did what I had to do to protect my son. I'm a mother. What kind of mother would I be if I didn't do anything to protect my child? And then he was like, I'm going to do all I can to help you. And she's like, it's too late for that. I mean, he's like, no. The thing is, because of your condition, they have to transfer you to a regular hospital. You're just in the infirmary right now, but they're gonna have to analyze you, and they only can do that at an actual hospital. So keep, you know, I got you. I'm gonna work this out. And then all of a sudden, we get a scene where Larry is at the office. He gets a call from Randall, and he's talking buku shit, talking about some, oh yeah, I know what you did, motherfucker. You been avoiding me and shit. I've been calling you. What, you made me sign the divorce papers? What, you thought your ass was slick, huh? He's like, dude, I don't know what you did, man. You probably signed them when you were drunk or something. I had nothing to do with that. He's like, oh yeah, but he's like, know what, Randall, we should talk about this in person. He's like, well, I'm coming by your office. He's like, well, I'm about to leave. He's like, well, I'm going to come by your house. He's like, you know what? Yeah, why don't you come by my house? I'm going to have some friends and stuff over. The same party that he invited Eddie's ass to. So, you know, we saw that go down. And then we get to end this scene Stevens decides, after Esperanza and Stevens done sweated up the sheets, he decides to get his clothes on and that he's gonna go home. And she's like, but I want you to stay. And she's like, see, that's just it. I'm not giving you that kind of control. I'm going home. And because you want me to stay is the main reason why I'm going home. And she says that, and if you're gonna go to some, go back with that bar girl, I would appreciate it if I don't know about it. And he was like, what girl? So he was using her as a ruse just to make Esperanza jealous because he knows Esperanza wants his ass. So we see that he ends up leaving. The guys out of the van come out and they begin to fight to fight Stevens and begin to jump him. So that's where it ended, and we're gonna find out whether Stevens survives this. But Stevens already showed that he got some moves, so we're gonna see how that's gonna play out. So that's what I have, everybody. If I missed anything, put it down in the comments. I'd love to talk to you about it. But subscribe to my channel. Click that bell so you get notifications every time I drop a video. Also, follow me on all of my social platforms. I have them all listed in the description box. Also, like this video, comment on this video, and share this video. And I'll be back with another episode of If Loving You Was Wrong. So until next time, everybody, take care.